Today we've got three Liliput wagons to have a look at, and they're all from different eras in Liliput's production. I thought it'd be good to do a comparison between these over the ages and see how Liliput have changed their models over time and see if there have been any drastic improvements. What we've got today is an Anchor beer wagon, which I think is the oldest, this one up here in the plastic box. Then we have this hopper wagon in a cardboard box down below, which I think is a bit newer. And over there on the right we have an up-to-date model from Liliput. This is when they've been taken over by Bachmann and they come in these dark blue boxes, which I think arguably looks the best out of the three here. But we're going to have a look at each of these three wagons in turn and see how they stack up against one another. Okay, so this Anchor beer wagon is number 24851 and it is, I think, the oldest of the three, like I mentioned already, but it does look quite appealing with this colour scheme and the logos on it. I've never heard of Anchor beer, it's one I've got to try yet, but I'm sure I'll get onto it at some point. So looking at this side of the wagon, we've got a little platform with the brake gear here and these little handrails going up to the roof. This one's come loose, it's actually meant to fit there underneath the roof, which is quite nice. There's a little slot in the roof there for this piece of plastic to go in, and it's nice and fine, and it's also pliable as well, which is great, so it'll take a few knocks. Other than that, there's not much on the end of this wagon, some nice planking detail on the ribs there, and then as we look down the side of the wagon, this is a really bright, interesting graphic that this model has got, but you can see that the printing doesn't fare too good over the planking there, and especially on the Anchor beer wording here, you can see that it has a lot of white running through it. However, it does have some really good graphics down here of the SBB CFF, so this is obviously a Swiss wagon, and we have the door lock and the handle picked out in some black paint here as well. This end of the wagon is quite plain again, it has the planking and the framework as well. This model does look as though it's had a little bit of a bash just in this corner here, which is a bit of a shame, but it is quite an old model now. The roof is a separate moulding, different piece of plastic in this kind of grey colour, and it has these ribs on it. No moulding mark on it though, which is great. And down here on the chassis, it's a black moulding with these nice steps here, some nice bracing here along the edge of the chassis, and we've got some really nice detail here with the axle boxes and the brake gear. The brakes aren't anywhere near these wheels though. The wheels revolve pretty well, and we have couplings which are articulated. Quite a simple setup here, and they are also in NEM pockets as well. So that's really quite good. And the buffers here are part of the chassis moulding, and you will hear as well if I do this, that we have a weight inside this wagon which has come loose as well. Underneath, a real good representation of planking and bracing, and we have two extra pieces added in which are for the brake gear, which look really good. And then finally on the corners here we have some steps as well, which have this interesting angled profile to them. So it's not a bad model overall, it's quite interesting and it's certainly quite bright and colourful, but it does have some limitations. So let's have a look at the hopper wagon now. So the packaging of the hopper wagon is much worse than the beer wagon. It's just made of cardboard, it doesn't support the wagon as well. But we do have this leaflet here. I'm not quite sure what this is telling me because it's all in German. Again, I don't read that. And it has the number 3 here as well. I don't know what that means. And the back of this is no help either. But here is the wagon, and I think straight away you can see that this is an upgrade over the beer wagon. It's got some much more detailed printing here. Again, it's got SBB CFF, so this is Swiss again, and it has this logo here. But the printing isn't too good, it's a little bit fuzzy, especially here on the corners, and it's a bit off on this part here, but it is noticeable that there is more printing on this model. We've got this platform here as an extra piece. It's all made of plastic. It is quite pliable as well, which is good, but we have some planking on that there, which looks really quite convincing. The main moulding is done in this dark brown colour, but we do have some yellow painted onto these little tie downs here, and the moulding is much finer with some extra detail, including this pipework along here and the bracing of the hopper too. The inside of the hopper has been painted this grey colour, not very well on some of the corners here, but it does look really good that it's been painted a different shade. And then as we look at the end of this wagon, we've got these buffers which are just made out of plastic. They're not sprung or anything, but they are separate pieces that have been added in. And then looking underneath, bogies on this one are held on with these really nice screws and washers, and the wheels are still the same, not very free running, but there is a lot of detail on these bogies that I really like. Spring detail is very good. We don't have NEM pockets on this wagon, but the couplings do move independently of the bogies. So aside from some of the bad printing here, I think this model is quite a step up from the previous one, but they haven't quite mastered the printing on these wagons yet, so let's have a look at the final one. So in the final one, we've got some extra parts that we can add on to this wagon. They look like handrails and vacuum pipes as well. The packaging as well, I think, is much better. It's got a plastic inner tray which holds the wagon securely, and the design of the box is really quite cool as well. So here is the wagon. This one is OBB, so it's Austrian, but it does have many of the similar characteristics of the other two in that it's got this frame here with a brakeman's wheel and some planking there. Again, this is pliable plastic, so it can move and take a few hits. It's got steps coming down here, and then the main moulding along here looks to be moulded in brown plastic, and we've got a black part which has been painted on there as well. On this one, the printing of the logos and the lettering is much better than the previous two, and there's really fine detail. For example, this part here where it has some details of the wagon is very small. Can't actually see that with the naked eye. The actual moulding itself is some really nice representation of planking and the bracing here. This door is really quite good as well. You can see the two holes there. I guess there's a little handle to be added in here. And also here on the end of the wagon, it's got another two holes. And we saw the extra parts in the bag there. Inside, it's plain on the inside here, but we do have planking represented on the base of this model. So I think it's not very good that this is all plain, so it would probably benefit from having a load in here to hide that. This end of the wagon has some nice detail. It's very crisp and clear, and on the buffer beam, we've got some holes there. I guess that's for the vacuum pipe that we saw, and it has rivet detail and these really nice buffers as well. These are now actually sprung, and they're metal in their little plastic sleeves there. And looking underneath, it's a different layout here because we've got really quite defined bracing, which has been done really well. I think this is an extra piece added in here, and you can see the brake gear there as well, an extra piece. And the wheels are much better for rolling. They're not the best I've seen ever, but they're not too bad at all. But what is really good is the brake gear, which is an extra piece that's been added in, and the part around here with the springs and the axle boxes. Couplings are in them pockets, and they're cantilevering on this spring system. They're a bit stiff, I have to say, but it's not too bad. And then finally, we've got some really fine steps here and these little wheels which have been added in as well, and that's another nice little piece as well. So overall, this has really come on quite a lot. This is much better than the other three. So here are all three wagons that we've had a look at today. The beer wagon is really starting to show its age now, especially on the printing. It's not very good at all, but it is still quite a pleasing model. It does hold up by today's standards, I think. I think it's probably let down by the definition on the moulding, but it's still pretty good, I think. The hopper wagon, you can see it has moved on quite a bit. There's a lot more detail on this moulding, and it's more intricate as well, but they really haven't cracked the printing on it, and that's really quite poor. This modern wagon, now that it's moved to China, I think is the star of the show. It's got some really fine detail on it, and the definition of the moulding is very good as well, and they've got the printing spot on. The only downside is the inner parts of these side pieces here, which have nothing on them at all, but like I said, easily hidden with possibly a load in this wagon. So I really think Liliput have come on leaps and bounds since Bachmann took them over. It's definitely a massive step up for that final wagon over the hopper wagon, and there's not much difference between the hopper and the beer wagon, I think. Now that could be because manufacturing has gone to China and people got different views about that. I think for wagons though, the Chinese manufacturing really beats what we were producing here in Europe. Overall, I think Liliput wagons are actually quite good. I think they're very underrated as well, and certainly going by the standard of the Austrian brown wagon at the front there, I think they're absolutely brilliant models to add to your collection. So I hope you liked this video and my analysis of these wagons. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put these on the turntable so you can see all the way around them. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya!